I would say I'm going to go about my daily life. If I get it, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to let nature do its course. Survival of the fittest kind of an approach, and just say,
Yeah.
if it knocks me out, it knocks me out. I'm going to be okay. Even if I die, I die. I kind of have peace about that. While the virus does not give me a great amount of personal fear, there's still great reason for me to engage in wearing a mask and social distancing and, washing my hands as frequently as I can and following protocols that have been set in place.
I'm not going to lie, fellas, this show's about your opinion, but as someone who lost family to the virus, that was really hard for me to stomach and watch. Stephen A., you go first.
No, I would actually ask for Max to go first in this. I'd really like to hear what you have to say about this, Max, and then I go first. Originally I was going to go first, Molly. It's not you. I just want to hear from Max first.
All good. Yeah.
Happy to. First of all, let me say that I never got the sense that Kirk Cousins is the brightest bulb. When I listen to him talk, he sounds like a nice guy, but I never got the sense I'm listening to a rocket scientist. However, that's not what's most important to me about people. What's most important to me is that they're good people. And Kirk Cousins, he's a man of faith, and he always talks about this. And that doesn't automatically make you a good person, even though it gets tossed around in our culture as though it does, because oftentimes throughout history, religion has been used and faith has been used to do all kinds of bad things. It depends on the kind of person who's wielding their faith or so-called faith.
That's
but
true.
Kirk Cousins, I remember guys going back to Michael Sam. And there were people who had a problem with Michael Sam who came out openly as gay. And Kirk Cousins was asked about it. And he was talking about the fact that Jesus loved everyone and talked about all the sinners he loved. This is from memory. That's a man of faith who maybe sometimes I got the sense with Kirk Cousins relies on it for a lot of answers when maybe he could do a little more independent thinking. But on the other hand, knows that guide works for him in this world and helps him be a good person. And the way I hear it as a secular person is not so much faith in God as faith in good. And a lot of people hear that as synonymous, like God and good is the same thing. But that's when I hear him refer to the kind of best teachings in the New Testament, that's what I think of. He uses faith in being good to people as his guide. Now, is what he said irresponsible or insensitive? Sure, it could be interpreted that way. He was talking about himself, and it was important that he clarify, I think, and say, look, social distance, wear masks, wash your hands. I'm talking about the way I think, and this gets back to kind of thinking things through and just not reflexively. Faith as a kind of, a tool that applies to every single thing. In the absence of kind of thinking independently for yourself at times. What Kirk Cousins, I think, has to understand, and what his clarification spoke to, was the virus is not just about your life, not even primarily about your life. The reason to social distance and wear a mask and wash your hands is so you don't spread it to others. I imagine Kirk Cousins, in the prime of his life, a world-class athlete, from what we know, it seems to me, would be less at risk for serious complications, although not entirely devoid of risk, than people with underlying conditions, the elderly, etc. And that's why you take these precautions. So my basic feeling is his follow-up was good. I don't hold it against him, Molly. I know you have maybe feelings otherwise. It seems to me from his public statements that he's a man who uses his faith to try to be a better person, and that goes a long way with me. I think he needed to think this one through a little more before he spoke originally.
Well, Max, I'm not going to disagree with you. I pretty much agree with all your points there, but I want to add a couple of things. First of all, and Molly, this is directed at you too because of your opening comments once you heard what he had to say about how difficult it was for you to watch. First things first, I completely appreciate the fact, and please, the producers, leave us up on the 3 screen because I want to see Molly and Max when I say this. I definitely appreciate Kirk Cousins coming out and acknowledging, you know what, wash your hands, wear a mask, put on some gloves, personal protection equipment. It's about making sure you don't spread it to others, as Max just articulated. And I think that's an incredibly important point. So I want to say I'm happy that he did that. But in the same breath, I also want to say that I didn't take it the way some people would take it. I understand why they did it. But, you know, level, if you remember, Max, Molly, y'all know I lost my mom in 2017, and obviously that wasn't the coronavirus, of course, that was cancer. My mother passed away from cancer in 2017, and I remember as heartbroken as I was, and as heartbroken as I was watching her deteriorate and debilitate before our very eyes because of what cancer does to you, I remember that she wasn't that way. We were sad, we were devastated, we were hurt knowing that she was fading away, but she was fine. And the reason why she was fine was because she was a strong, devout Christian woman who had an incredible amount of faith and this innate belief that there was a better place than here once everything in the physical was over. And because of that, there was a comfort level that she had, Molly, where she'll be fine and I'll be fine because God is going to take care of me. And that was her belief. And the reason why I bring that up is because as Kirk Cousins is talking, that he is a man of faith, Max, as you articulated, I also think it's important to understand when you're dealing with this virus, we've gotten to a point in our society where obviously the fears are very palpable and real, where anything you might catch it and you'd have no idea how you acquired it, right? And so you get to a point where whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You're not saying it to be nonchalant, careless, and dismissive of other people's fears. What you're saying is, all I can do is all I can do. Here I am. And if this is how it's going to go down for me, then you know what? I think God's on my side. And if he decides to take me away from this, so be it. Now, the reason why I think that's important to appreciate is because we have so many people in this world who claim to be so devoutly religious and have such a strong belief in a higher self, yet they're absolutely petrified of death. And that's courage to feel as human beings with a spirit and a soul. Inevitably, it's going to happen. Like for me, my fear is how I go out. My fear is how I die. I don't want to die violently. I don't want to die in excruciating pain. I don't want to die in a very vicious and violent fashion. But I do have a level of fearlessness as it pertains to when God calls me to come home. He's called me to come home. And if somebody has that mentality, we can't excoriate them for feeling that way. We have to respect the fact that they have a right to, while still acknowledging Max's point. It's not just about you. It's about other people. So be careful what you say and how you disseminate it, Kirk Cousins, because it's one thing to say, I believe that I'm going to a better place. I'm not scared. There's another thing to come across as if you're not really concerned about the virus because it will give somebody else a reason to be a bit lackadaisical and nonchalant about it. And we certainly don't want it to say.
Can I say
I
one
just
thing
want to
quickly,
wrap up.
Molly?
Can I say, I wanted to say, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
so here's
I would
what I
just
wanted to say. Max, hold on. Let me just go ahead here. I appreciate everything you all said, guys, and I think you know me well enough that I'm a reasonable person and I can understand multiple perspectives, but I'm also a very passionate person. And Stephen A., you can stop me at any time if I'm speaking out of turn, but I know you received an award recently, and that was associated with the Dickie V Foundation, and I actually wrote the intro for it about you and about your story with your mother. I've had the pleasure of meeting your family. And one thing I know for a fact is that how hard she fought. So I understand her being a woman of faith when God calls me home. I get that. I have that same perspective, but she still fought her behind off year after year. Value your life at the same time. And we do also have free will. So I do understand where Kirk is coming from. I just found his comments a bit ignorant and a bit insensitive. So that was hard for me to hear. And I think as somebody that has black and brown family, affected by this. So maybe I'm more sensitive to it than other people. And then also we're in the television business. And Stephen A., I talk about this with you all the time. Both of you are brilliant. You're so talented and it's an honor to work with both of you. I mean, some people, after effects of this virus, brain fog, recall, they're not as sharp. That could affect our ability to do our job. So do I walk around paranoid? No. But in the back of my mind, I'm a bit scared because it can react differently to all different people. And so that's why I guess if I sound a little bit worked up or sensitive, it's with that backstory, and then obviously seeing my grandmother and us not being able to be with her, it's hard. The virus, it's really like ravaging our society, and it's devastating. So I appreciate that he walked it back and he apologized. But yeah, when I first heard it, I was really hurt by his comments. Max?
Well, I think that something like this, it comes to mind that Kirk Cousins played golf with Trump. That from the beginning, this has been this administration has politicized the pandemic and hampered the CDC in the middle of a global pandemic. That we up to 200,000 American deaths yet from this pandemic. And so when people hear this, particularly when faith is attached to it, they can hear it as being influenced politically because the president has messaged to portions of the religious community about this sort of thing and about how the survival of the fittest. We've heard the certain keywords. In this case, I don't see it that way. I don't see this as a politicized Kirk Cousins talking about it. I really did see it as, or hear it as, him speaking from his own point of view about his own health as a man of faith, and I appreciate his clarification afterwards.
On a lighter note, I'll close this segment with a lighter note. I don't think anybody would take seriously the president talking about survival of the fittest. I don't think.
All right. We just crossed the top of the hour, guys, here on First Take. I know that got a bit heavy, but I'm glad we had the conversation. And I know Kirk, ultimately, his heart's in the right place there, Kirk Cousins. But we also had some breaking news earlier regarding the Brooklyn Nets and their new head coach. We're going to have David Fizdale is going to join us, Coach Fizz. Looking forward to talking to him about this hire, and also Richard Jefferson. So we will